Alright, what I want you to do is I want you to do a cab check, safe engine start.
Okay, so I'm going to start with the door closed because otherwise our interlock brakes are on and I need my brakes all off right now. With the key in the on position, my dash and my gauges are on. I'm going to start with my static air brake check because I see that I already have 120 psi built up. I have my wheel chocks out already, and so with my wheel chocks out, I'm going to release my parking brake first. After I release my parking brake, I'm going to wait a minute using my clock on the dash here to make sure, watching the gauges, that I don't drop more than 2 psi in a minute. I'm listening for any air leaks. I'm watching the gauges to make sure that they're not moving. I don't see any movement in the gauges. It doesn't look like I'm losing any air pressure, and I don't hear any air pressure. I'm waiting a minute for that.
It's been a minute.
Okay, next thing I'm going to do is apply pressure to the service brake, and after the initial pressure loss, I'm going to make sure that it doesn't drop more than 3 psi in a minute using my clock on the dash. Once again, watching the gauges to make sure that they're not moving and I'm not losing 3 psi, and also listening for any air leaks that I might hear coming from the system. We'll continue to wait a minute to see if there's any air leaks. The pressure is holding though, so
It's been a minute.
okay, the pressure is holding. I'm going to fan my brakes to check for my 3 warning devices. My warning devices are my wigwag, I'll have some lights, and then I'll have an audible alarm on the dash. The wigwag will come down about 90, and the lights and the audible alarm will come on about 60. Wigwag, there's both my lights and the audible alarm. The last thing I have to do is finish fanning the brakes to make sure that my spring brake pops out at about 30 psi. I do that now. My spring brake stays popped out around 30 psi. I'm going to go ahead and restart the engine to check and make sure that it rebuilds pressure back up to 120 psi, and in the end I'll have to get my wheel chocks and do a 5-mile-an-hour 50-foot brake test. So, but before I start the engine, I want to make sure that my wait to start light and my ABS light both come on and go out, along with all my other dash warning lights, and they have. I'm going to go ahead and start the engine. Engine is started. I'm going to check first to make sure that I have oil pressure. My tachometer is working. See, I have oil pressure. It's between 10 and 50 psi, and I know the gauges are working. I give it a little bit of throttle. I can see it moving. I'm going to wait for my alternator to show that it's charging at 13 to 14 volts. It's not doing that quite yet. It's still only at 12 volts. I have enough fuel for the trip. I have enough DEF for the trip. See, my air pressure gauges are starting to rise. My voltmeter has just kicked up to 13.7 volts, so now I know my alternator is charging. I'll watch for my coolant temperature to rise to a safe operating range. On this particular bus, it's just between cold and hot. I know that it should be between 175 and 195 degrees roughly. Anything at 220, 225 or higher, I would typically get a engine warning light on the dash. Got my headlights on. I have my destination light on. I'm going to check my left green indicator light on the dash is working. My right green indicator light on the dash is working. My blue high beam indicator light on the dash is working. My green 4-way indicator lights on the dash are working. My yellow student warning light indicator light on the dash is working. When I open the door, my red stop arm light indicator light on the dash is also working. I'm going to go ahead and check and make sure I have less than 10 degrees or 2 inches of play on a 20-inch wheel. I check and make sure that my horn is working. I check and make sure that my windshield wipers and fluid are working properly. I have proper pressure against the windshield, the wipers. The wiper blades are not ripped or torn. and they're cleaning the windshield properly. All my glass at the front of the bus here from inside is clean, it's not cracked, there's no obstructions on it, there's only the valid inspection sticker on the windows. Outside I can see my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mirrors are all clean and adjusted properly for my seated position, with the exception of my crossover mirror there that I adjusted slightly but needs more adjustment. I'll do that outside then when I fixed properly. I'm going to go ahead and check and make sure that my heaters, my front heater, my first rear seat heater, and then my 2 rear seat heaters are all functioning properly. I'm going to check and make sure that my defroster is working properly and blowing sufficient air in the front windshields here. I'm going to check and make sure that all my interior lights are all, including my dome light, are all working properly. And then I have 2 fans left and right. They are also working properly. I'm going to go ahead and check and make sure that my seat belt is not damaged, it's not frayed, it's not ripped or torn, and that it mounts securely. I'm going to check my commercial vehicle safety equipment that I have. I have a properly rated and charged and properly securely mounted fire extinguisher. I have 3 reflective triangles in a red box located under the last seat at the rear of the bus that I can show you a little bit later. This is a school bus, so we don't carry spare fuses. We have a locked electrical panel box on the outside of the bus here. Because it is a school bus, I do have a first aid kit, a body fluid kit, and a seatbelt cutter within reach here for myself also. I have rebuilt up to 120 psi. I heard the governor kick out. I have no more warning devices, and I'm able to reset my wigwag. And I still need to check the rest of my exterior lights and my reflective tape and markers. I also need to retrieve my wheel chock so I can do a 5-mile-an-hour 50-foot brake test. Would you like me to do that now?
No.
No?
No.
Alright, I need to do a 5-mile-an-hour 50-foot brake test though before I'm done?
We'll get to that. We're going to carry on with the rest of the pre-trip inspection.
Okay, you don't want me to finish doing the rest of my lights and...
I will check them later.
Okay.